Today, Fnatic won ESWC, and in doing so, really cemented their status as like the #1 CSGO team in the world right now. If you think about it, coming into Face It LAN, I think technically you actually probably had to edge it to LDLC. I think the two obvious candidates was LDLC and Fnatic in terms of who's the best. But at the time, LDLC had just won the Star Ladder tournament where they'd beaten Titan, who Titan themselves had beaten Fnatic and LDLC at the DreamHack Stockholm. So just in terms of the sequence of events, it wasn't clear who the #1 was. There wasn't a clear-cut person out there. But Fnatic's big results had been they'd only won Star Ladder the one before that, season 10, and then they had some good rankings like second place at ESL1 Cologne rather, but that was a few months back. So overall going into Face It, I had LDLC #1 by like that much, and I figured, I even said on the analysis, okay, whoever wins Face It LAN will take the lead in terms of who's actually the #1 team. So Fnatic won that tournament, so now we came into ESWC, but again, even winning that wasn't enough to put them clear ahead. They were just ahead. So now it was going to come down to this tournament. This would really decide, because if LDLC won, suddenly it'd shift things back towards them a bit. It'd be kind of almost tied again. If Fnatic could win, as they did, that'd be pretty solid. 2 event wins in a row. LDLC had only had 1 and under different circumstances. So overall, I think this was enough to be like, this has firmly put them #1 for me. Like, I'll give you some context now. Going into DreamHack Winter, okay, in the middle, we've got Fragmite Masters. Let's say that can potentially even things out again. But ultimately, unless something crazy happens at Fragmite Masters, I actually think that Fnatic's going to be the #1 team regardless of what happens at DreamHack Winter. Just because in terms of like overall results, because when you're making the world ranking, you have to look at the last 5 tournaments. Aside from LDLC, there isn't really a team out there who can elevate themselves right to the top unless someone has a crazy result at Fragmite Masters and then wins DreamHack Winter. So ultimately, it's really between those two teams as to who's going to be the best at the end of the year. And at the moment, Fnatic have the lead, and unless LDLC do something amazing, it's going to be Fnatic for the rest of the year, basically. So let's look at this Fnatic team that came together and then now the best team in the world. So let's start with the old Fnatic lineup, the one that had Devil Walk, Schneider, and then the 3 players that have here, Flusher, JW, Pronax. We remember they came together, they got Pronax, they immediately had the second at MSI in late 2013. Then they shocked the world. They won DreamHack Winter. Now they had this really easy bracket. That's what kind of lulled you into false sense of security in terms of the other side was going to win, because the other side was Very Games versus NIP, and these were the 2 teams that dominated the year, and we were sure they would win. But anyway, Fnatic had the easy bracket, but they got to the final, they shocked NIP, they won in 3 maps, amazing stuff. But some people went a bit too far. They didn't want to say it was a shock. They want to say, no, Fnatic's proven like they're now a legit contender for the world and they're an elite team. Unfortunately, they weren't really. Like, you saw the results after that, just dropped off event by event by event. They finished 3rd at the DreamHack Invitational early on in 2014 rather. Then they only had 5th to 8th places at EMS Katowice and Copenhagen Games. These were disappointing results. You're already dropping right down. Then the real blow came when they went to DreamHack Summer, and they didn't even get out of the group. At that point, Fnatic made the right decision. We have to change something. It's going to have to be players, because we have the same core, and what's going to change at this point? So here's the key move they made. They took out Schneider, took out Devil Walk, and they brought in Krimz and Olofmeister from LGB. And LGB, for anyone who doesn't know, was like one of the hot dark horse teams. Like, they made a run to top 8 at DreamHack Winter, played against NIP in a 3-game series. Then we go over to the guys they came top 4 at EMS Katowice, the major, so another major. They had an even better result there, and they were able to beat Fnatic, the other one, make it to top 4, lost to Virtus Pro, so the eventual champions. Then they had I think it was 5th to 8th at Copenhagen Games, but that's because they had to play Virtus Pro earlier. So they had some solid results, but then that team fell apart. They couldn't get a solid sponsorship. Dennis, the leader, quit, and then they just broke apart. And then we finally got these players in a Fnatic. Immediately, as soon as they joined Fnatic, things immediately started to go well. Much better than the old Fnatic lineup. They actually, overall, have had this run where they've played at 6 offline events. They finished top 4 in every single one. So that's a really solid line of consistency through their performance. That alone is a historical note to make, because I looked back in CSGO history. I thought back, okay, what teams have had runs like that of top 4 finishes in a row? So NIP, they're the best team of all time. They have an incredible one that no one's going to match. NIP had 31 straight offline tournaments where they finished top 4, spanning the beginning of CSGO in 2012 right up until they didn't finish in the top 4 ESEA Season 16 LAN. So, 17 actually. So, yeah, that's never going to be matched. So, forget that one. That's like some Wilt Chamberlain shit that's out of bounds. But after that, now you're actually starting to get Fnatic's into the realm with the 6 already. So, Very Games technically had an 11 straight tournament run like that. But actually, I'm not sure I count that as much because 4 of those were when they had RPK, then 5 after that were with Scream and Kenny S pairing, and then 2 after that came with when you had Shocks in the lineup. So actually, these are different. I mean, three different sets of players they're playing in this lineup. So I would actually break those apart and just say, let's say there's a 5 and a 4. So actually, Fnatic's already ahead of those if you break them up into just 5-man lineups. Now then, Very Games and Titan, when they became the best team in the world, that period towards the end is sort of like October 2013, running through to early 2014. Yeah, they had 7 straight there when they had a solid lineup with Shocks in the lineup. So let's go Nip 31, then we go Very Game Titan 7 straight tournaments, top 4. Now we've got Fnatic right in there at number 3 already. 6 straight tournaments, top 4. Then we go to the other Very Games. So already, believe it or not, they haven't won a major yet, but this is already one of the greatest teams in the history of CSGO, just from this initial run of 6 tournaments. So the tournament streak began. They made it to the semi-finals of Gfinity, G3. They lost to Titan there in 3 maps. Then they go to ESL1 Cologne. This is one of those tournaments where, to some degree, they probably should have won the tournament. They made it all the way to the final, lost in 3 maps to Nip, very close fashion. So they were losing. It was only close games here. It's getting them something to get in the finals or winning tournaments. They won the Star Ladder tournament, beating Na'Vi in Kiev, which is no mean feat, as we've seen by some of these teams. But it wasn't a major tournament. Their only win at that point. Then DreamHack Invitational, they were billed to win. They had this incredible streak online. They were destroying everyone, but actually they were shocked. Titan just blew them away, 1 in 2 maps. That was the worst offline defeat ever by far. But they came right back. Face it, they won. They went 9-1 in maps. They only lost 1 map out of 10. They beat iBuyPower in the final, beat Virtus.pro in the semi-final. Go over to ESWC. Again, they won the whole tournament. They went 10 out of 11 maps. They only lost 1 map. It was to Na'Vi. Incredible performance again. So think about that in terms of their dominance at the moment, these last 2 events. Over the last 2 events, which they won both of them, face at ESWC, they are 19-2 in maps. So they won 19 out of 21 maps in these tournaments. That's just incredible form. You can't even conceive of form like that. That's very impressive stuff. That's comparable to like Nip in their heyday. Obviously, Nip had a longer stretch of it though, because normally teams, they will give up maps. They'll give up a map in the group stage or a map in a best of 3 here. There's only 2 times in the last that they've actually had this happen with them. So, and crucially for me, here's a key point as well that puts them up there. Part of the reason why LDLC and Fnatic were like vying like that was not only were they the ones who'd won the recent events and they were overall the consistent ones, because actually LDLC, with their new lineup, they've had 4 straight tournaments with top 4, so they're already starting to get into some very solid territory themselves. But the key thing was, when these teams won different events and when they had different things, they never faced up. They were never on the right side of the bracket, or they always would have met in the final, like they would have met in the final of DreamHack Invitational, but Titan upset Fnatic. They would have met in the final of Face It, but iBuyPower upset LDLC. So I wanted to see these 2 teams, the 2 teams vying for the top spot, finally face in a best of 3. This tournament, we got it. They met in the final. They have a shared map pool. That's one of the key reasons, aside from them being the 2 number 1 and number 2 teams, but they have a shared map pool, so we'd really get to see who's best on the maps that we're actually both really good on. And obviously, you can see from the results there, at least this time, it was Fnatic quite convincing. I think Fnatic are a bit better, but I think LDLC could have shown more. Let's talk now about Fnatic themselves, though. So I'll go through the members of the team, and I'll go through kind of in how I see like the importance level, because first and foremost, here's a point I want to make. A lot of people are going to look at this team, and maybe you're a casual fan, or maybe you're just someone who only plays the game, you don't analyse the game much. It's very easy, I understand why, to look at Fnatic and say, oh, JW, he's the star. Like, he always used to be the member of the old team that everyone used to always point to and say he's amazing, he's like potentially one of the best players in the world. But actually, JW still hasn't cemented himself as the best player in the world. He hasn't got to that level, because his big problem is he doesn't have consistency. And then secondly, actually, think about this. Even though they just won these 2 tournaments, Face It, and they won ESWC now, JW's the guy who, throughout the tournament, when it's group stage, just a round of 8, maybe even a semi-final, he'll be styling on people, bodying them, having crazy maps where he gets 25, 30 frags. It looks like he has the skills, the tools to be the best player in the world. But if you actually look in finals or in really big pressure matches, JW just becomes like kind of average. His inconsistency, if you put a line through it, it's just an average top-level pro. He's not dominating, okay? Crucially, the man who has been dominating in this lineup, and in fact who was the guy who you noticed when they started this online streak of being incredible after ESL1 Cologne, is Krimz. Now, when they brought in Krimz and Olofm from LGB, Krimz was like a support player in that team. We didn't even look at him as a star. If you're talking about stars in LGB, you started with Olofem. He was the main star. Then you had Dennis, the in-game leader, but also a really good fragger. Then you go Makalele. He used to be called Exum at the time. You got 3 players before you're even getting to the territory where you're going to mention, oh yeah, Krimz and Huithen, they're like supported players. He was not even close to being world's best player in that team. The positions they put him in Fnatic, he's actually still playing a lot of supportive positions, but his performance level is through the roof. This is exactly the right sort of team for him. And he's hitting his stride as a performer and as a player. It's just, you can tell he's comfortable, he's confident, he knows his skill set, the ranges of what he's doing. And now, in my opinion, I'm going to put him as the best player in the world thanks to these last 2 tournaments. I had Kenny S just before that because of his consistency and very good performance. But this guy's team's winning and he's the best player in his team and he's being the best player in every final. Think of the last 2 finals. Face it, in ESWC, Krimz has been by far the best player in these finals, dominating. Now his style of play is very interesting. I'm gonna do some work on this myself later because what's interesting about Krimz's style of play, a point that I think I'm going to make here is he's dominating from a position we haven't seen anyone dominate from in CS. There are other players who would dominate in the standard styles of position, but his style is, he's actually like a really passive style of player. He's playing a supportive role where you just hold a site, like the most famous is on Inferno, he'll hold the B site. But the way he holds it, he's so smart with his positioning, his decision-making of when to take a shot, when to pull back to a position, when to hold this one position here, knowing like if I die now, then it cuts the angle off for my teammate, so it takes them longer to get in, or if I get the kill there, slows the rush down, or to let them come in so that I can kill a guy from behind. He's very intelligent. His intuitive sense of when to do things is really high level. Because of this, he's able to dominate from a position where usually we don't see the dominating players. It's not really usually these sorts of positional players. In fact, in CSGO, positional play to some degree has died off. It's a lot of aggressive, peeking, players who are in your face, they're rushing you, they're taking the duel. Krimz really isn't actually that style of player. And so it's interesting that he's dominating from kind of an unconventional position, kind of like Get Right dominates from a position we don't usually see the star player playing in. But I'll get to that later. Okay, so Krimz, for me, number one, it's his consistency. He's not only the best player and playing at a very high level, but he's very consistent. And you know what you're going to get from him. You know exactly how he's going to play. Well, if you think in people in his team, other opponents don't always. You know how he's going to play, where he's going to play, what he's going to do. And he synergizes well with Olofem. He synergizes well with JW when he's supposed to his site. This is the backbone of this team. Now let's go down. Yeah, now we've got JW. JW's style, it isn't consistent, at least not in the big matches, but it's very dangerous. That's the thing. He's very, okay, you'd call him like Randy, kind of a random player, but actually it's more like he's just super aggressive and impulsive. And when his shots are going, and when he's got the AWP, and when he's got the rifles, and when he's pushing and when Pronax is telling him to switch positions, I don't know if he decides that himself, he's a terror on the map. Like you're worried on CT side, on T side, he can really break open sites. This is a really dangerous player. I'd have him as the second best player in the team. Go down, here's where it might get interesting, because I'd have actually Flusher here. Flusher is like a less high-level performing Krimz. He's a really stable player. He just mows you down, a couple of kills around, hold a position, repeat it, hold that one position. He's really solid in this sense. Like I'd love to be an in-game leader and have a player like this on my team. I thought he was the most consistent in the old team when JW used to be up and down and Schneider and them used to take turns. Flusher's like used to be the core, and now that you've got Krimz as well, you put these 2 players in your team, and no wonder on CT sides it's like a brick wall. You can't break into Fnatic's CT sides. They're just monsters. Then you have JW in on that, and here's the thing. One of the things about Krimz is he allows Olofem and JW to be better players, because JW now doesn't have to provide the monster amount of frags. He can be this Randy kind of player. He's got this stable system of Flusher and Krimz behind him, and Krimz is adding a lot of kills and winning a lot of rounds. That now JW's dangerous, risky style of play, when it pays off, is just going to put Fnatic completely over the top. You can't beat them when it's working. And when it's not working, they're still going to be in the game, and he's going to have time to pick it back up again. Here's the other thing. Because Krimz plays this super amazing style on locking down his small sites, it opens up the game for Olofem a lot more. Olofem hasn't been the star for Fnatic, but you can see over the last couple of tournaments, he has been lifting his level. Well, if Krimz holds down the site properly, and you know the way he holds it is like a brick wall, you can't get into it. And if you do get in, he's going to take people, or he's going to hold you, or he's going to waste time. It means that Olofem, especially on Inferno, this is where you see this, Olofem can just gamble and go to the A site. If they know it's likely to be A, they can set up for the early attack there. It's going to be so hard to get into A now. When you are on B, it's going to synergize well with this guy who's played with a long time. You can see the way they get information control on Banana. It totally makes sense when you see the hierarchy of the players and how they're playing their roles, why Fnatic is so strong. Now one last topic on Olofm. I'd say the way I define Olofm at the moment, I think he is still a bit out of his role, but he's getting into it. I'd just say he has a very high skill level. To me, he's the best example of like a confidence player. JW will actually just try his really impulsive stuff, even when he isn't hitting shots. Actually, Olofm, he can go from being just an average top pro to being like a really good player. It really seems dependent on like his confidence within the game, depending on the sorts of shots he's hitting and how the opponent's reacting to him. He feels like if he's a player who has to like feed off getting a good start, getting a roll going. The last player, Pronax. Now, Pronax has set the tone in all the Fnatic lineups. In the lineup where they won DreamHack Winter, this was where it really was his reading style of the game. And what he was able to do was, on T side particularly, the best map to see this was Inferno. He was really good at reading where the defense would be and then setting his attacks up so that the first half of the terrorist round is just probing, drawing smokes out, flashes out, making the enemy rotate round to there, or I'd say load towards there. Like as in, for example, the guy who rotates from B on Inferno, sometimes he's not going to actually rotate into the A site, but you want him closer towards the arch there. In this sort of, oh fucking hell, that's so annoying. Anyway, you want him over here towards the arch. If you can pull him over there, then his rotation time is going to be worse, even if he didn't actually go into that site. Now, in this era, the problem the Fnatic had before is they almost relied on his gimmick of reading. And actually, when it would fall apart, they had nothing because their team wasn't quite skilled enough to match up with like a Virtus Pro or an NIP or a Titan. They couldn't really match quite that level. They had to win on the gimmick of Fnatic having a really good game reading it and tactically calling stuff. Nowadays, with this star power lineup of very dangerous players, and across the board, everyone except Pronax has a really high skill level, or they're very stable, or they play their role very well, it means that now he's got a really good tool set. So when his game is rolling in terms of that in-game reading style, that's why Fnatic's unbeatable. Like, they can get the monster CT half with great setups, but then they can also bang in 5 or 6 rounds on all maps T-side. So as a result, you can't beat them in this particular scenario. Going forwards, though, I have to say, Pronax still has the same weakness that he always had, which is that if his mid-round style of reading the game isn't working, then actually you see them fall apart a little bit. They do slow down a bit, and then they'll try to get their people to rotate, and they're not rotating because they're being read, or that's his problem. It's because he's trying to read your mind. If you can kind of anticipate and get a good bead or a good rhythm of like, oh, I can sense how he's doing it now, then actually he becomes a lot less effective. But anyway, it's not mattering at the moment because they have such a powerful team. But that'll be something interesting in the future if teams can match up with Fnatic to see if that's a factor there. Because if an existence team gets really good, if NIP gets the level of their players up again, that's when we'll start to see an interesting matchup. Virtus Pro gets good again. Now let's look at the team in terms of the maps, because the map pool is one of the key things making Fnatic not only the best team, but a dominant team now over these events. Crucially, a lot of the teams that have fallen off are the teams that were really good on T side of maps. So I'm going to go with NIP, I'm going to go with Virtus Pro. Titan have got a newer lineup, and it isn't to the degree of the old Titan. And then the fourth team, I'll say Cloud9 actually. These teams can all be very good on T side, but for different reasons, they've all fallen off a little bit. And so what we've ended up with is the best teams in the world at the moment are teams like Fnatic, LDLC. You're sort of bringing in like IB Power on the outside there. Virtus Pro still in the mix. Even though I mentioned Virtus Pro before in the T side sets of teams. But the key thing with all these teams is, first and foremost, every one of these teams loves Inferno. This is either their best or second best map. Now, Fnatic is the best team in the world on Inferno. So that means the other teams are always going to give them Inferno, which almost guarantees that Fnatic will always get one map immediately out of the first two in the best of three. So they're always going to be up a map playing to win two, or definitely going to a third. So that's one of the things that's going to make it very difficult to beat Fnatic right now. I'll actually contrast it to when Na'Vi in 2010 rose up and dominated the year in CS 1.6, because the key thing there was at the same time they had the same problem, okay, which is that Fnatic and MTW and Train with the Fnatic, MTW and SK Gaming were the other three top teams, and then on the outskirts of that you had the Poles. Crucially, all four of these teams like to play Train, and that was Navi's home map. Na'Vi, they were all very good, but Na'Vi was the best on Train. So the same scenario, Na'Vi always could rely on winning Train, then they have a chance to win the 2-0, but if they lose the second map, they're going to a third map. Obviously, it doesn't always be in that order, but they're always going to get to a third map at worst. So that's what allows you to dominate as well. It's a key factor, actually, is that the maps have to line up in terms of the other teams who want to play you, because if you can play them on a map that they're good at, but you're better on, you're going to, as you play all those out 10 times in a row, you're going to get the 8, the 9, the 7 wins that you need, you know. On Inferno, yeah, online they have this crazy record. Like online and offline with the new lineup, they're like almost 90%. But even offline, they're 88% win rate with this new lineup. They've only lost twice out of 17 times on Inferno. That's unreal. It's no wonder they're the best in the whole world. And even with these other teams, a lot of these other teams are amazing on CT side. Fnatic's a bit better than everyone on CT side. Go down, okay, Cash. Now here's the thing. If you asked me, just you, because the way I don't usually look at the stats, I look them up for events to see what conclusions I come to, but I actually tried to figure out the game just by looking at the game and seeing how I interpret. Okay, if you'd asked me what the second best Fnatic map is, I would have actually said Mirage, because they play it so often, they're so good on it. But actually, statistically, Cash is the second best map. But here's the key thing. Monster win rate on that online as well. Never lost offline, but they only played it 5 times offline. That's the key point there. It probably is their second best map. Better than Mirage, but people know that, and so since everyone plays Inferno, everyone bans Cash to a degree against them. Okay, there's a couple of teams that tried it, hasn't really worked out for them, but I would still say you could edge Mirage up because they're playing it more and they're still winning at a high rate. So the third map is Mirage. Again, high win rate, not quite as high online. Offline, 8 times they've won out of 11 played, so still 72% win rate on their third best map offline. That's just fucking insane. Now you can see if you've got 3 strong maps like this with 70+% win rate and the others are like 100%, 88%, you can already tell like the blueprint's there to be one of the best teams in the whole world. And you consider Inferno, Cash, Mirage, these are 3 maps that all those other teams I mentioned are playing. LDLC, Virtus Pro, they want to be playing these maps. So again, you're in a position where you're going to be the best in the world because you're the best on those maps on average, and your opponents are giving you them, or they're having to take away a strong back from them and risk it on a third map. Like, this is a great scenario if you want to be the best. Going forwards, the other 2 maps, okay, that I'm going to put out of this 5-map pool, this is where you can see the level that Fnatic's at. The 4th best map for Fnatic is Overpass. They've only had to play it 4 times offline. They've never lost. Again, they're not even having to play it much. It's a newer map that a lot of teams haven't mastered, but people don't mind sometimes risking it as a third map. So far, Fnatic haven't lost on it. So they've already got 4 maps that are really strong here out of a potential 7 or 5 map pool. It's no wonder they're the best team in the world. Now, one of the few that actually you can get wins on them is Dust 2. Admittedly, some of those Dusses were earlier on in the lineup's history, but they're only 50% win rate on that. That's actually a map that's winnable. As we saw, Bye Bye Power were able to take a map off them in the final and face it on there. So if you can get to that map, you've got a chance, but with the way map bans work and with the way most of the other teams are, as I described in terms of their strengths, you're not really going to get there. So that's actually a problem at the moment. But a map that they always ban is Nuke. Now, here's what's interesting. They don't need to be. They're the best team in the world. But if they wanted to be, they could be a good team on Nuke. I guarantee you. They could have 60-70% win rate on this map. The setup of players they have, especially strong positional players, Flasher, Krimz, they could be incredible on CT side of this map. Admittedly, it doesn't work quite in the same way as like Inferno and Cash and Inferno and Mirage do in terms of going towards the mid-game reading style of Pronax on T side. But when you're as good as they could be on CT side, I don't think you'd need to be. Now, they don't need to be great on Nuke at the moment. They're already the best team in the world. But if they want to add it in, if they want to become more rounded, if they want to get to the level, like that's part of, by the way, why NiP was able to have that 31 tournament streak. It wasn't just that they had amazing players. They had the best player in the world, the best team, the best synergy, the best communication. They had all those things, but they also played every single map in the pool at a high level on all of them, 70 or 80% win rate. And as a result, they always had the advantage going into the pick ban phase. They could always toy with you. Oh, I know you don't play Train, but I play Train. Oh, you don't play Nuke, one of my best maps. Oh, you don't want to play Inferno. Well, I'm not going to ban Inferno either. So you could go through the map pool. They could play whatever they wanted to go to your weaknesses, and that's why they were able to grind and be consistent against every kind of opponent, every tournament, every month, every meta change, everything. Nothing could stop them. If Fnatic want to do that, add this in. This could be the final key to really dominate, not just be the best and win tournaments, but to dominate an era. Because this is what they're hinting at right now. 2 tournaments isn't enough to say you're really dominating the whole era, but it's the beginning of their era potentially. And let's see, we've got 2 tournaments coming up now, including a major. Can they become a great team? One last thing I want to address is whenever a team wins a couple of events like this, it's always going to seem like who could beat them? Like, what would you need to beat them? In a general sense, thinking of some of the things I've talked about now, I'd say a general sense, before I specify teams, would be that you're going to need to have a really good T side, because Fnatic is the best CT team at the moment, and crucially, because everyone's playing Inferno, they're the best on Inferno on that map, so you're not going to win by out counter-terrorist playing them on Inferno. They're the best at that, unfortunately, so what you're going to need is to get more T rounds. If you can get more T rounds, that's going to even that up a bit. And then if you're still a good CT team, now you're in the realm of where you can win some of these games, where some of them will be 13-13, 14-13, and you'll have a chance, or overtime or whatever. So you need to be good on T side, particularly on a map like Inferno if possible. I would say you either have to be amazing on Inferno and hope you can, even though you're going to be an underdog slightly because they're the best on it, hope you can score a win off them. So, okay, there's a potential, good on Inferno. Or you want to be amazing on, I'd say something like both. 2 out of these 3, Cobblestone, Dust 2, or Overpass. Because if you're amazing on 2 out of those 3, the way they ban means you're going to get a chance at least on one of them. Like, you might get to play Dust 2, or maybe you'll play Overpass. This will give you some room to get in there. Because you remember, in this scenario, you're probably going to lose Inferno. So you're going to need to win a second map. And then a third map, you need to be at least within the realm where you have a chance to win. The third map can't be Cash, because they're amazing on that as well. They're going to beat you on Inferno and Cash. They'll go, the series done. Now, one last thing. The style of how you should play if you're probably going to want to beat Fnatic. I think what you need to have is it's going to be all about, on the CT side, how you play. That's the style difference. You just need to get the rounds as T, but the style difference on CT is that you need to have someone who's good at anticipating how the enemy will attack. So basically what I described more, that's how you're going to have to try and take advantage of Pronax's weakness, which is that when he does his feints, you need to have the in-game leader who doesn't just react to that, like, okay, smoke's coming here, rotate over, or I'm just going to guess that they're going there. He's the guy who himself gets a sense for, like, okay, this setup, I can tell, like, what he would want to do now, logically, is do this. And so then he's going to make the call. Because crucially, since Inferno is the key to all this, because everyone's playing it and they're so good on CT side themselves, the key point is you need to have the guy who can gamble correctly. Because Inferno is all about gambling. Either you want to definitely have the 2 people inside B and not move them at all so that you can get a solid trade and you have time to do the retake, or you want to be gambling that man over from B towards the A site so that you've got a lockdown on A, so that either you just crush it when they come right in, or you're in position to hold while the other guy rotates, or you go the banana way. A team who can do this, an old example of this would actually have been Titan. They were a solid team in place like this, but their old lineups didn't have the skill level, they didn't have the performance level towards the end where they could actually get in a position in tournaments where they would have played a team like this and they would have been able to beat them. They were up and down before they changed to this lineup with Apex and those guys. So now I've given you the generalities. Let's actually look at some teams who could do this. So first one is LDLC, the one they just played now. That's why I wanted to see them play. LDLC definitely could win Inferno against Fnatic. That is not ridiculous at all. Fnatic are better on Inferno and crucially better on CT side. But LDLC's team with that loose style, if 2 or 3 of their players are on, they can win T rounds. They can make it at least harder for the Fnatic side. They can make it so Fnatic only gets 10 CT rounds, and now it's a winnable game. And then crucially, LDLC has one of the best CT halves in the game. I'd say they've got the second best CT half on Inferno. So get it to 10 rounds only for Fnatic. And yeah, you could win 10, you can win 11. These games could happen. It's not the most likely outcome, but it's not ridiculous either. That can be a win there. So there's a map for you already. Now then, LDLC can be very good on Mirage and Cash as well. These are 2 maps that can be strong for them. Mirage particularly, I think they still haven't quite kicked into a top gear that they can get to on that map. They can make that a stronger map for them. And if they can, that can maybe bridge some of the gap here. So I think LDLC definitely can. Like I say, LDLC, because they've only won 1 tournament, it's kind of actually deceiving. You're not noticing actually the level of consistency they've put up. Like Fnatic's only just won these 2 big tournaments now, aside from the Star Ladder. So it kind of crept up on you that they'd had 6 tournaments with top 4s and everything. LDLC's had 4 straight tournaments with top 4 at all of them, so they've proven consistent level. Like, they're always going to make semis and beyond, but they need to now get into the level where they can win events. It's not enough to just win like 1 Star Ladder. Now they have to be able to win events and beat teams like Fnatic in a best of 3. Who else can do it? Titan. Now, let's not be ridiculous. Titan now can't do it. As in, this Titan team won't play today and beat Fnatic. but this team definitely has the tools and the potential to do it. Now, it's very easy to say the Titan that played at DreamHack Invitational, which did beat Fnatic in the best of 3, can beat them. Yeah, that can. But that was like the best day possible for that team, at least in the early phase. What I mean by they can is the tools of what Titan have would allow them to. So think about what I said. You'd need a good T-side, particularly on Inferno. Titan definitely have that. Titan's one of the better T-side teams, the existing style of play. They've got a set style, but it's executes. They can win rounds off you. And crucially, Kenny S is a real X-factor on T-side of Inferno. His AWPing is amazing. He can out-AWP JW when JW takes those aggressive angles and pushes. So immediately he can break the game open. So it's not just 5 CTs sitting back passively dominating you, or JW just running around terrorizing you while you can't even get in on the other players. He can get in and get picks. He can out-duel a JW. So immediately that's bringing you into the realm where you can have a chance there. The last team I'll bring forwards is Virtus.pro. Now, Virtus.pro is an outside chance because the problem with Virtus.pro right now isn't even their style, because they have the same exact style before. The style before meant that the way it goes is every 1 in, I'd say now 4 events, they could win the event. Like everything can come together. The Virtus Plow gets activated. They could win. They're great on Inferno. They used to be really good on Mirage. That's slipped a little bit. Cash, we thought they were awesome on, but actually they've had a couple of bad results. They lost to Cloud9 on it twice now. That's a shaky map for them. The big problem to me in Virtus.pro isn't the style of play. It isn't the in-game leadership. It's actually just performance level of individual players. They always had a problem with Taz playing badly in this last era of their team. That's fine, actually. It's still happening now, but that's not the problem. The big problem for them has been the drop-off of Pasha. Pasha was the flasher type consistent performer. I know exactly what I'm going to get from him every time. He was also the best player for a while in their team. At the moment, they have games where Snax does great, have games where Bialy does great. They've even had games where both of them did great. But then Pasha's level's dropping and Neo can't become the third quite good enough to make them up the level they were before, when they had like Pasha always the best and then Snax and Bialy take turns to be the awesome player. They're lacking a little bit of firepower just from individual performance. So if that is fixed, nothing else has to change, then they have a couple of maps they can beat Fnatic on, even strong ones, and they do have the lineup to do it. So those would be my 3 teams I think have the best chance of beating them. But as it stands right now, as I was explaining that there's still things where those teams have to improve or tweak or overcome something, like a player underperforming. Actually, I'll just reference this. LDLC really underperformed in that final. So again, that's one of their problems, is everyone always gives the compliment to LDLC, which is correct. They're one of the few teams where you almost can't predict which one will be top fragging, actually. All of them I won't say take turns, because actually some of them are better than others, but all of them will have a time to a different degree where they will be top of the frags or they'll have a really good game. Their problem is that within that is their problem. If you have a world-class player like Krimz, he consistently is up there. Okay, maybe JW has a map where he does it, maybe Olofmeister has a map where he does it, but overall the one who does it the most is Krimz if it's on Fnatic. The fact that they don't have that in LDLC is not because everyone's so awesome, they're just taking turns and competing, we're all doing so great. It's actually because they're quite inconsistent as a team. They don't have as well-defined roles as Fnatic does. So one of them does well one game, Smiths did awesome at some of those other lands. Where was he in this final? Shox can be amazing for a map. He's never quite the consistent player, remember, of 2013. This is their problem, actually. So all these other teams have something they're lacking still, whereas Fnatic, just what Fnatic has now, with no changes, don't even have to improve Nuke and bring it in, just all the players they have now, playing how they've been playing over these last 6 events, are the best team, should remain the best team, because we haven't got anything to suggest they won't yet. And so going forwards, yeah, they're the favourite to win DreamHack Winter. They are the favourite, they're the best team in the world. They've got, in my opinion, the best player in the world now, Krimz. That's Fnatic. Welcome to the Fnatic era.